Hello and welcome to episode 74 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark, and coming up on today's episode, I'm going to be joined by Dustin Kensrue, the singer from the band Thrice, also the podcast host from one of my favourite new podcasts, Carry the Fire, and just someone that can sing better than anyone else in the world and write the best songs. I really do truly mean that. Thrice are one of my favourite bands of all time, probably actually my favourite, so to know I got the opportunity to get him back on Mark and Me was a dream come true. Then to be told I could do it face to face during their UK headline tour with Refused was an even better dream come true, so I'm absolutely buzzing to have him join me today on the Mark and Me podcast. But in true typical Mark and Me fashion, you know the score by now, I like to touch base and talk about the last episode. So this was a two-parter with Scott Mosier. Now Scott hasn't done podcasts for a long time, especially with Kevin Smith and the Smodcast community. So to get him on Mark and Me was a huge deal. And I never expected the numbers to be as high as they were. And it was actually official, put out there on social media only recently. Scott Mosier is now my most downloaded podcast I've ever released. So thank you for everyone that listened and checked out that podcast. And again, reading all the tweets, the Facebook comments, the emails was just unbelievable. So thanks for all the positivity and the amazing support that you guys give me. But like I said, I was lucky enough to go to Thrice's UK show just recently in Birmingham and sit down with Dustin. So let's just get straight to it. Here's me and Dustin talking all things podcast. Thanks for joining me face to face this time.
Yeah, glad to.
So for those listeners out there that have just tuned in who have not heard of Thrice before, all I want to do is give them a little insight to the early work of you guys. So you've been going 20 years, which is a hell of an achievement with the original lineup.
Yeah, same peeps.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah, that's really cool.
What I want to do is, just at the start, so when I first spoke to you, you were telling me that you first grew up listening to stuff like Michael Jackson records.
Yeah, I grew up listening to Michael Jackson. I grew up listening to a bunch of like my parents' classic rock stuff, Zeppelin, Beatles, Stones, stuff like that.
So it's some really good stuff to help shape the foundation of your music taste.
Yeah, I think especially Beatles were probably super foundational. Listened to that a lot when growing up.
When you had those foundations in place, at what point was it that you wanted to pick up a guitar and actually start writing songs? Because it's different listening to actually trying to do it yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know, something about guitar just seems cool, you know, like it's, as a kid you're like, that's cool.
I used to stand with a guitar in the mirror, pretending I was in Green Day and Nirvana.
I can play air guitar really good, right? Like, I must be able to play real guitar.
I was so good at air guitar.
Yeah. Yes, so I started playing junior high, and just there's like an elective you could take and play a little bit, and it was mostly everyone just going outside and teaching each other, you know, a Metallica song or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just started then, and would fool around with writing songs, but didn't play really in a band until a bit later in high school. Tried to start something with Tepe really briefly, our guitarist in Thrice, and then we actually started Thrice a little bit after that. So that was my senior year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I never thought I was a very good guitarist, but I feel like playing long enough, like I've found my own kind of. I'm definitely not a very technical guitarist.
No.
But like how quick you're like, no, you're not.
No, but you and Tepe kind of split it now. When you first started, he was doing on all the sort of solo stuff on Artists and the Ambulance, all the sort of twiddly stuff. Where now I've seen you do a lot more. As you
I'll do. And it's just stuff that's like more natural to how I play.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, you're a good guitarist. So at what point was it that you knew you had a good vocal? Because obviously being a singer and frontman is not easy in a band, especially with a guitar in your hand. But at what point were you sitting there in the mirror when you're air guitaring singing along, or was someone telling you had a great voice?
I would actually play all the time and sing, like just around. So I'd just be out with friends skateboarding, and I sucked at skateboarding, so I'd bring my guitar and I'd screw around singing. Yeah, so I would just sing all the time, really, and I think got slowly better at it. I'd go like busk with my friend down at the beach or whatever and get a few bucks.
That's amazing.
So as introverted as I am, I always liked something about performing.
And then with your band, what I love about Thrice is when someone says to me, what's your favourite Thrice album? It's not about what's my favourite, it's about what my mindset's in. So if I'm going on a night out, I want the rocky, heavy, early stuff. But if I get in, I want the melodic, more mellow stuff, especially stuff off Palms and Beggars. But you evolve as a band. Like you don't sound like the same band that you did 15, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Is that a conscious effort when you go into the studio, or is it just the fact that you've all improved as songwriters and you've evolved, like bands like Radiohead and stuff that don't sound like the early bands ever?
Yeah, well, I think Radiohead's a good touchstone because we've always really appreciated that they just forged ahead and did whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Even if when you first heard the record, you're like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, Kid A, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, Kid A, I just sat with for 2 weeks and finally it clicked.
Yeah.
But so that's always inspired us, I think. The Beatles too just kind of hit that point and they're like, no, we're just going to do whatever we want and it'll be weird. I think it's been a conscious effort for us always to push ourselves forward and try new things, combine new things. I think Visu is the first time we actually really achieved that the way we wanted to.
Yeah.
And from then on, it's a bit of like you react to what you did too. So we did Visu, and then I had the idea for the Alchemy Index, and that was almost taking Visu and like blowing it up into all these different directions.
Yeah. And
then reacted to that, did Beggars, which is super, super stripped down and kind of pulled back on the tones and wanted to feel almost like more like a 70s rock record, like the way it felt, not overly compressed and pushed in your face. So it was a bit of like reacting to ourselves too and wanting to just keep it interesting, really.
I mean, the Alchemy Index is a perfect example of how a band can be so versatile and so different. The songs on there, like the real mellow stuff with the synths, like Open Water and stuff like that, but then you've got the heavy side. But you actually did all that yourself, didn't you? You recorded, produced it, did it all your own.
Yeah, that one and Beggars we did all our own. But someone else mixed Beggars. But and we did a lot of Palms on our own too. But I think for that record, it never would have turned out the way it did had we not done it ourselves, because we just had the freedom to go follow all these different trails, and someone trying to produce it would have lost their mind, I think.
Yeah.
Just being, what are you guys doing? Like,
the fact you guys didn't split up from trying to do that huge project on your own, like, how many tracks is it? Is it 24? Yeah. That's hell of a, it's like the Melancholy from Pumpkins. You've got absolutely shitloads of songs.
Yeah.
It's such a big project.
It was huge, and it took a while. It was fun doing it, though, especially because we were kind of recording while we were writing, which is not usually how we do it.
Yeah.
So that was fun. It was definitely, I think, a huge growing experience for us, and I don't remember that one being super stressful writing. Maybe I'm probably wrong now.
Because now looking back, it doesn't seem as bad, but at the moment you might have been like, Christ, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it was hard lyrically writing that many songs in that short of time period.
Yeah. As a band that tours so hard and have been on the scene for so long, the industry's getting tougher. It's all streaming services now, and people don't buy records. But you guys decided to have a hiatus and step away for a bit. Is that why you think you've come back stronger than ever, and you've got that passion again? That you seem to have that absolute love for it again?
I think it was really, really healthy to step away. I mean, we've been going so long, and some bands have a bit of a slower schedule, like between records, but it always has been tight for us, just because to kind of make a living doing it at our level, you have to keep touring a certain amount, so that's really where you make most of your money. And so you gotta like restart a touring cycle, have a new record to do. So it was always a bit quicker than we'd want, even though we love writing the music, it's like you wish you had like a lot of time to do it. So so I think for us it just always felt really compressed, like the whole cycle, and we never had a break. So when we took that break, it was hard for everyone, I think, in different ways, but it coming back definitely felt very refreshed, very renewed about how we looked at the whole thing. We were able to kind of try to set some new rhythms, and it was really, really healthy.
As a listener, I won't lie, when a band say they're going on hiatus, you kind of think the worst. You think, oh fuck, that's a protected way of saying we're done. Mm-hmm. And it was so nice when you came back with, was it Major Minor?
Yeah,
and it was
Major Minor was right before. To Be Everywhere is
And then the first time then I heard Hurricane, I was like, okay, these guys are back with a vengeance. You seem to be so much more into it. The live shows, you could tell that you guys were loving it again. It was awesome.
Yeah, I think during that whole Major Minor thing, it was just a heavy time too, so it was probably not the best time to see us. I don't know, it was just heavy. We had a lot of death around us, and it was brutal. So, and we knew we were like taking the break, and so it just all felt really, really heavy. But yeah, it's definitely feeling very free and exciting to be doing this.
How do you find the balance? Because obviously you're a father, you've got obviously other things outside of your music career. You've got your podcast now, Tepe's got his designer industry for belts and leathers and all this, but you've all got your other projects that you do, and other bands even. Do you think you've now got a healthier balance because it isn't 10 months touring and solidly on the road and not seeing the loved ones?
Yeah, some of it is we're really trying to limit tours to like 3 weeks if we can, 3.5, and then if we have to push it, we'll push it to like 5 or something. But that's helpful because we used to do like 6, 7, 8, and it's a lot worse.
Yeah.
So that's helpful, and then it's always hard to balance it. It's a much bigger stressor on everything than you would realize. I think it throws the rhythm of like your family's life off every time you go. So that's always hard. When I'm home, I try to just take over and let my wife. She works too, so it's kind of crazy when I'm home.
Kind of tap back in and just take over.
Yeah, so now, it's like, all right, I got the kids. I'm gonna cook. I'm gonna clean, do laundry stuff. Try to just take all that like house stuff away, and kids like just take that stuff off her plate. So
Do you get like a list?
Sometimes better than others, but
do you get like you owe me 3 weeks worth of school runs now? And
no, I just try to just be like, all right, you get to tap out and you can go to work and enjoy the kids, and I'll deal with their craziness.
I want to start talking about your podcast, but just before I do, we're obviously sat here now. You're starting your UK tour, and you've got a co-headline with one of my favourite bands, Refused. How is that? That must be a really good feeling knowing that you're going on the road now. You've got some European dates with such a band that have just blown it out of the water again with a new album.
It's really cool. So this is the first day, yeah. So I haven't even seen the guys yet, actually, but we are really, really, really excited to be out with them. They've been a favorite of all of ours for a long time. Obviously, Shape of Punk is just
legacy,
a beast.
Isn't it?
I mean, I generally tell people I think it might be the best heavy record of all time. Like it's so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're really happy to be out with them.
Awesome. So now let's get to the podcast stuff, which I've been waiting to talk to you about. I was so excited when it came out of nowhere because you didn't do any teasers or anything. It was like, this is a Patreon, this is what I've got, this is what's going to happen. And the response online for it, I thought, all I saw was the logo, the Carry the Fire logo, and I saw that you were attached to it, and I was like, this is going to be good. And you were getting people buying in before you'd even released an episode. So you're getting people, donating via Patreon, signing up. And, I've been at it now for nearly a year and a half, and I've not got, 10 or 20% of what you've got, and it's been such a good response straight away. You must have been so proud by the initial sign-up.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously most of those people all of them beforehand are going to be signing up because they, believe in what I've done in the band and on my own, and so that's really, really cool. I mean, I feel like it's kind of the same buy-in we get with people trusting us to make another record and be like pre-ordering it. It's like, I know, I trust that you're going to do something and put everything into it, make it good. So yeah, that was very encouraging. And I part of the reason I launched that first was I wanted to get people able to be involved as I was starting to record, because I was starting before I started releasing them. So getting questions for guests and stuff like that. Yeah.
So what was it that made you want to do a podcast? Is it the fact that you listen to a lot of podcasts yourself, or?
I do listen to a lot of podcasts. The idea kind of came into my head of trying to do something that is, looking at the big questions through the lens of the good, the true, and the beautiful, and having just a variety of people on and trying to talk about these things in a way that highlights our common humanity. I think, especially kind of in the fractured space that the world is in right now, like obviously you can't reconcile all the things, but you can learn to disagree and to hear from people who you might not agree with on a bunch of stuff, but to hear how they look at the good and the true and the beautiful, and realize that it overlaps a lot of the ways that you do, and can even expand the way that you do. So that idea came into my head, and I kind of sat with it, and it wasn't going away. So that's usually a sign that I want to pursue something. So I started looking into it. I was going to try to do it all on my own and try to do it maybe once a month, and worked a bunch trying to get it going, and then almost last minute I talked to my buddy and ended up asking him to produce it, and so that allowed it to step up to be once a week, and so we'll see how that goes, but it seems like it's working well so far.
It's great. I love the fact that I didn't know what it was going to be about. You said you put on there answering the biggest questions that we all have, that sort of stuff. Some early people, when you announced you were doing a podcast, Thrice fans must have been like, is he going to talk about his favourite records? Is he going to talk about bands he's toured with? Life on the road with Thrice? But I love the fact that you launched with Samir from Young the Giant.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was just, I'll be honest, I haven't heard that band, I've not heard of him, but then I was engaged in the episode, I listened to the interview, and then straight away I was like, I'm going to listen to the band, I'm going to check out more stuff, which is cool. Probably part of the purpose why you do these things, to introduce new people to the public out there.
Yeah, and I think there will be, if you look at it over the long run, maybe slightly more musicians on there than other people, just because I have better access to that. Yeah. But I mean, my hope is that it would be really balanced, to where you're hearing from a musician and a philosopher and a scientist and a therapist, and I really want it to be broad, and from you're going to hear from. So already we've had Muslim, Hindu, Christian, agnostic. I really want it to be broad, and for people to realize that a lot of the boxes that we put ourselves in, we put each other in, they're permeable. They don't have to be closed off. And then for people who do want to hear more about music stuff, there is that one of the perks of being a patron is there's lyric breakdown episodes that I do, which people have been really excited about. So that's cool. Yeah.
That's the reason I signed up. So I knew that I was getting a good podcast, but you can get the podcast for free on Spotify, etc. But then I signed up to be a patron because I wanted to know the reasons behind the songs, because you always try and work out your own ones and try and sit there and, I wonder if Dustin's saying this or it's about this, but then you released the first one for Beyond the Pines,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't know if it'd be a 10-minute little summary, but it ended up being a 45-minute episode, really in depth, and it was fucking hell, this song's got so much to it.
Well, what's cool about doing it too, at least for me, is so I'm taking input from the patrons on what they felt like, and what it's meant to them, taking questions, whatever, and so taking all that and realizing, it shows me, man, this song has reached further and in different ways than I ever thought of, and that is actually enhancing the way that I even view it now. And so the point of it is not to explain the song away, but to kind of open up a bigger discussion of how we look at lyrics in general, and the ways that they can shape us, or that we can change our interpretations of them over time. And
the interaction you're doing with the fans is amazing. The fact that you read out and just did a Q&A recently. Fair play to you as well, because I do the podcast on my own. I've got no producer, I do it all, but I hate the sound of my own voice, so I'm sitting there recording my intro, and just doing a 2-minute intro to this, I do about 10 takes, because I'm like, I didn't like the way I said this, and this sounds a bit false. And I could hear you kind of, with full respect, at the start being a bit nervous, a bit like on edge, like I hope this works, if it doesn't, we'll see how it goes. And I was like, I love the honesty. You're not trying to be this whole show face, like I'm a podcaster now. You were very honest and letting your guard down.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think my skills as a podcaster are much more in the way that I kind of craft where I want the conversation to go around those lenses, more so than my actual speaking abilities. But actually, if I do like the intro and outro stuff, like I'll write a script for it, and I can actually have no problem doing that and feeling like, yeah, I nailed that. It's more like hearing me go like and like trailing off and stuff like that. So I'm learning.
That's the thing, is that every episode you must be feeling that you're getting stronger, you've got more kind of knowledge, and you're building such a good little array of guests. Like the second guest was Brian McDonald, and again, I didn't know anything about this guy, but he's a storyteller, and again, fascinating, absolutely completely different to Sam Ear as the first episode, so instantly I was like, you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's the hope. And I because I don't want it to build like a feeling of where you're going to get out of any episode. I want it to be more like the format itself works well enough to where, like, it comes down to believing that anyone. I mean, I really believe I could do the show with just a random person off the street.
Yeah.
And if I got a little bit of background info on them, I think it would still be worth listening to as you explore these deep issues with someone, because you're getting that unique perspective.
Yeah.
You're getting this human perspective, and it's going to overlap you some ways, and other ways it's not. The reason, I do it with people at least have like some sort of public field is just because I'm able to do enough research and have an angle to go into it to bring something good out of it. But
what do you think about the fans out there that are limits are quite they're quite limited in their respect, and they're quite small-minded, so when you start talking about religion or politics, people instantly want to switch off? Because I know that you made a purpose this week of kind of coming out and saying everyone's welcome to listen to this podcast, it's not for a certain audience.
And that's true, and it's also not it's different than saying everyone's welcome to have a platform on here, because I need to be discerning about that, I think. And that doesn't mean that it might not push certain buttons for certain people at some point, because I do think even when you really disagree about something, there's dialogue that needs to be had to have anyone change their mind, right? So if you believe that you have the right point of view, which we do, that's how we live our lives, and then we can change our minds, then you've got to have room for other people to change their minds too. But but everyone is definitely welcome to listen, and I think hopefully people from any side of the spectrum are going to be able to engage in that common humanity. Like that's the hope.
Yeah. I mean, you've just teased now online and announced this date for Gerard Way. That's going to be one that elevates it, isn't it? Because people are going to want to listen to that for his comic ideas, his writing for Netflix, his music career. How's that come about?
How did it get set up?
Yeah, is it something you wanted at the start, or?
I mean, I'm basically I have this giant list of people that I have some connection to.
Cool.
And I've tried to, or that I feel like I have, a person I could get through, and I'm trying to like arrange in a way that's like, these are realistic, I feel like I can get these soon, and then how do I arrange them in a way that feels really diverse? And Gerard was someone that came up that I was like, that would be interesting on a variety of levels. We've toured together, and we'd been trying to kind of hook up for a couple of years, actually. We'd text or whatever and be like, oh, we should hook up, and then it didn't work out. So it's kind of part of it's an excuse to just get to like,
just to hang out.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, literally part of the thing is I get an excuse to go have interesting conversations with interesting people, and sometimes they're friends that I haven't seen in too long. So
I liked your comment about just asking someone on the street or something, because my very first guest on this podcast was Kevin Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the cinema, I met him, and I was like, I'm just going to try my luck. You know, one of my favourite film directors, and I set the bar that high that I was like, shit, I've kind of given such a big guest. I should have just got my family and friends on. And then I followed it up with Corey Feldman, and he was really getting quite deep and talking about his abuse and all this, and I was like, shit, I really don't know how to do this. And then Anthony Hopkins came on, and I was like, fuck, like I've shot myself in the foot. But I then dropped it down to an independent filmmaker who no one has heard of, and then I dropped it down and I got my friend Tom, and he's literally an upcoming filmmaker, and that got just as many downloads because people loved his honesty and the fact that they discovered about it. Everyone knows why Anthony Hopkins wanted to be Hannibal Lecter. It's always the same sort of populated answers. So with yourself having that amazing variety at the start, I'm glad you didn't launch with Gerard Way, because it's just a big name. So I think you could have just been like, look, I've got this great big guest. But the fact it was someone that I had to go and read about and discover and find out more, you set yourself up really nicely with the flow already.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, I don't know. I know what you mean. Like, I have that same feeling of like, oh, if this does well, and then you're like, what do I follow that with? And I just think you can't worry about it. You have to focus on the content.
Yeah.
Just being strong on its own, not about... Because, I mean, who knows at the end of the day who's even going to hear that he's on there.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But he definitely has, like, the biggest reach at this point of anyone that's going to be on it. But I lost my train of thought. Thanks, Refused.
Yeah. But one of my next guests who I've got on was, I went to Philadelphia with my dad for his birthday. He's like 82 years old, and I took him on a Rocky tour. So he loves Rocky.
Oh, that's cool.
He's never been out of the country on a plane, and I took him for his birthday. And we had a tour guide that took us all around, who told us all about Rocky, and he's a massive enthusiast. I sat down with him and did an episode, and it's my favourite.
Really?
And for me personally, it beats... I sat down and interviewed Mads Mikkelsen and had a great time with him and Jason Mewes and all these people. But that's my favourite, because it was real. He was telling me stories about how Philadelphia is so bad for the drugs and all this, and it was astonishing. And I was like, I need to not worry about this legacy of these names and just get content.
Yeah, well, and I think it helped, obviously, to start with those people, but you find, I think anything you do, you start it and you go, and then you settle into, like, you don't know really what it's going to be until you get into it. I mean, every time we start a record, it's like, okay, we have an idea, and then it ends up being generally something totally different. But
yeah. So is there a list at the moment that you've got that is kind of like a dream list, like the out of reach, but maybe, because I've got Kurt Russell. I want to sit down with Kurt Russell.
That's your big one?
I want Kurt Russell.
Let me look.
I got John Carpenter, so I was like, I want Kurt Russell.
How are you getting these people's contacts?
Honestly, I don't know if it's just a case of people are just like, he's not trying to get a headline.
Wendell Berry would be cool. He's an author. Tom York.
Oh, Tom York.
Stephen King. Ava DuVernay would be cool. Cormac McCarthy, that one's kind of impossible probably. He's super reclusive. Neil deGrasse Tyson would be fun, I think. And I'm going to interview someone who's actually like buds with him.
Wow. So, and that's also how you get your guests. I got Kevin Smith, who led to Jason Mewes, who led to then Ethan Suplee, so it works like that.
That's cool. But yeah, the list is long.
So your dream guest would be something like Tom York?
Tom York would be great. I love Tom York. He's great. I don't know. I think Cormac McCarthy would probably be the dream one, just because it seems impossible. So that's I think it'd be more likely to get Tom York than to get Cormac. So
mine would be like, I love
intensely reclusive.
Christopher Nolan, I think would be great. I think it'd be interesting, and Spielberg. But then, what do you do? How do you talk to Spielberg? Like, my favourite film's Jaws, so do I just sit there and talk about Jaws, which he will not want to talk about? So
he might.
It's been a while.
Yeah. I saw. He did I didn't realize this, but Spielberg and John Williams have done. John Williams has done every movie that Spielberg's ever made.
Wow.
Which I did not. I had no idea. had this super long career together, and there's some like, I don't know what it's called. It's a live thing, them talking in front of like film students,
Right.
and they're just talking about their like working relationship.
Wow.
It's so cool.
Do you watch a lot of documentaries?
I like watching them. I don't watch as many as I should, probably. Like, not should, but I always want to, and then I just forget to.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. A lot of time when I have time to watch TV, it's me and my wife like chilling at night, just relaxing. So we're watching something funny, or we'll get into some show that goes on forever and ever. But
You can never watch it all because it's too much of a commitment.
yeah, well, I don't know. We like having one that's like huge, so we have something. We don't fall into the show hole.
My problem is that I've got a big list, so everyone's telling me to watch the new Stranger Things and to watch this.
Oh, yeah.
And I keep going back and just watching The American Office on repeat.
Really?
That's all I do.
It is fantastic. I realized a couple years ago I had never finished it.
Wow.
For some reason, like, we finished it. For some reason, we had stopped. I think it got a little slow there when Michael left. Or, I don't know. Then we stopped for a minute, and we didn't realize we hadn't like actually finished it out. And we watched the whole thing again, and the end was killing me. It was so good, so heavy. I was like,
It's amazing, but I just need to move on and watch other stuff because all I'll ever do is just keep watching it. It's on Amazon now, and it's on in the background, and I'm like, I should be watching new films and stuff.
have you seen Stranger Things 1 and 2?
Yes.
Dude, 3
And
is
everyone told me the third
incredible.
one is... I know, and
Some
it's one
people
of
don't
my
like it. I
favourite TV
love
shows
it.
ever, so I don't know why I haven't got round to it. And there's nods to John Carpenter and all this, and I'm just being an idiot. I just need to stop watching The Office and give it some time.
Yeah, it's really good.
With the future, with you guys, obviously you're touring at the moment. The last time I spoke to you, you told me that you were working on an album with your brother, which was going to be an indie album. Has anything happened since then, or is that still in the pipeline?
It's there. It's like both of us are busy, so it doesn't get worked on as much as it should. I think he's coming out on tour with us in the spring, so we might team up and work on it then. But yeah, it'll be kind of electronic, indie, whatever.
Very
I don't
different.
know. Yeah. I don't know. There's probably certain Thrice things that it could be somewhat related to, but I'm excited about the idea. We have a bunch of cool kind of songs. We just need to develop them. But
I've still got this burning feeling that one day you're going to do a soundtrack.
that would be cool. I've thought about it. I think I could do it, but it's the kind of thing that I just don't know when I would ever have time to do it.
Yeah.
It seems very time intensive. I don't know. I talked to Andy from Manchester, and they did the soundtrack for that Swiss Army Man.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And I mean, they loved doing it and worked really hard on it, but like, it was so not worth any kind of money for the time that they spent doing it. So I don't know. I hate having to think about that stuff, but if you have a long period where you're not making any income, and then at the end of it you don't make income, that's rough.
What about another solo album? So I've just been listening to your last one in the car for the last week and a half, solidly, and I was thinking, I wonder if he's got an urge to just pick up the acoustic again and do some more sort of solo material, or you were just more invested in just writing with the rest of the band now?
I mean, I have an urge to make way too many things. I'd love to do another solo record. I've got another kind of side project that I would want to do that I have a bunch of material for that I just don't have time to develop.
You're going to be a painter as well last time I spoke to you, because your wife paints at home and you're going to join her and start painting as well.
I failed at that. Well, she hasn't been doing her stuff that much, but no, that would be really fun. That would definitely be like actual hobby, like just to chill out. But good reminder.
Maybe when you retire, you sit and just paint by the sea.
Yeah, that sounds great.
That's when you got all the life for it. And obviously, with the podcast now doing really well, you've got this tour coming up. You're then doing a tour for the celebration of the 10th anniversary, 15 years anniversary.
Yeah. So we're doing a visa tour in the States. So we've never done a record tour.
No.
And we just, I don't know, it feels like it can be kind of a money grabby kind of vibe, and we never wanted to do that, but this is like a really important Yeah, there's some that are definitely staples, you know, like Earth Will Shake, Dustin Nations, and then yeah, some that like Atlantic we haven't played forever, I'm sure. Moss to Flame. Yeah, there's some we played a lot for a while and then haven't played in a long time. Stand If You Are Worth, or Red Sky is kind of a staple off that too.
Yeah.
So, we filmed a video for that in England.
Nice. Are you going to bring that tour over here or not?
There's not a plan to. I think just because we're here so close to it right now. We did come twice in a cycle, so that's we're really committed to like coming to Europe like twice around a record at least.
Yeah.
So we have not come consistently enough in the past. So.
I really appreciate your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. I hope people now go and check out your podcast. I genuinely fucking love it. It was recommended on my most recent podcast, Skip to the End, as my recommendation of the month.
Oh, cool.
So you should hopefully see some more traffic, but it's awesome and I can't wait to see what you're going to do.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. It's always great talking to you.
Cheers, man.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and Dustin Kensrue, my favourite songwriter, my favourite singer in my favourite band, and now probably my favourite podcaster. Yes, I'm absolutely thrilled he's been on today's episode, and I hope you listeners out there have enjoyed it just as much as me. As I mentioned and we discussed on this podcast, Dustin's new podcast is called Carry the Fire. I don't subscribe to many podcasts due to my time, and most of my spare time is actually spent listening to Mark and Me and Skip to the End during my editing time, but with my drive to work I've been listening to all of Carry the Fire. I'm one of the patrons, so I get all the access as well behind the lyrics to the Thrice songs which he's broken down. The most recent episodes of Words in the Water is absolutely fascinating. Even if you're not a huge fan of the band, this is an amazing podcast and it goes into great detail about the lyrics and meaning behind the songs, and I find that absolutely incredible. So yeah, go and check it out. If you want to listen to the normal podcast, you can go out there and use all the different sort of apps and software out there. I use sort of Spotify or iTunes, and they're all on there for you to listen to now. If you love Mark and Me, as always guys, if you can go on to markandme.com, on there's my Facebook page, my Instagram page, my email address, but also you can go on there and sign up to my own Patreon. And you can go on there and support the podcast as little as $1 a month. And you can't even buy a pair of tights for that. So yeah, I think that's value for money, and for that you're getting an episode every single week. And as you know with Mark and Me, I don't make any money from this podcast. It allows me to travel and conduct more and more interviews like I did with Dustin. And you know, I really do love doing face-to-face interviews. They're a lot more intimate, you get a lot more of an engaging conversation. But obviously I need money to travel, and that's what I use all my Patreon money for, and it's much, much appreciated. In the meantime, guys, like I said, go onto my website, post what you think about this episode, tag Dustin in, tag Carry the Fire podcast in. He'll read all the comments. I've been talking to him since and he's been loving the response, so please keep that coming. And I'll be back in 1 week's time with a brand new episode. So take care and I'll speak to you all then.
I waited outside. I took it remote. I wanted a bed. Tell the story or it goes. Tell the story or it goes. Full time, you talk your money up while it's living in a coal mine. Full time to call your ma. Hey ma, hey ma. Toll vote, you know you mope it up. Well, you wanted it to hold it. You're back and forth with that. and the past that you know. I wanted all that mine, sugar. I wanted all mine. I had to have it mine, sugar. I took it, it was right. Full time, you talk your money up while it's living in a coal mine. Told time to call your mind. Hey my. Told folks you know you mop it up. Well, you wanted it your whole life. You're back and forth with life. I waited outside. Then you took me in the room, and you'd offered up the truth. My eyes crawling up the window to the wall, from dusk till dawn. Let me talk to him. Let me talk to him all. Full time, you talk your money up while it's living in a coal mine. Told time to call